Welcome to the Seven Figure Builder Show. My name is Julie Baranek, founder of Seven Figure Builder, where we help high achieving CEOs connect with their dream clients to scale to seven figures and beyond. And I'm here today with my friend Don Gleason. Hey, Don.
Hi, Julie. I appreciate the opportunity to get together. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. I am thrilled. And today we're going to talk about a really intriguing concept, but a topic that's near and dear to my heart. But first and foremost, where in the world are you?
San Antonio, Texas. I retired down here out of the military, did 27 years in the military, and my last assignment was at the Pentagon. But this was where the next job was with Booz Allen Hamilton and supporting the Air Force Civil Engineer Center. So I came to San Antonio, and we just passed 14 years.
Wow, that's awesome. I'm actually originally from Texas, so
Oh, really?
I'll be coming back around at some point.
Which part?
Houston.
Houston. All right.
Yeah,
My two brothers are over that way.
nice,
Yeah.
nice. So, for those that haven't had the pleasure to meet you yet, can you tell us a bit about your business?
Sure. It's called Achieve New Heights because I just had this visual picture. In fact, we just did we're forming this Texas Leadership Coaches, TLC. They're with John Maxwell team, now the Maxwell Leadership Team. So we're starting to work together. So we just did a session today talking about John Maxwell's book, Put Your Dreams to the Test. And I was doing the chapter on clarity. And we're just practicing and seeing how everybody does it, right? To see how we fit together. We'll come back to that, how we fit together. And so in clarity, you've got to have that vision. So when I started creating the vision for my business, I wanted to help people get better. In my experience, 27 years in the Air Force, 9 years in corporate, and then now as consulting, is there's a lot of poor leaders out there. And there's some real good ones. There's a lot of poor ones. There's a lot of people in the middle. Everybody can improve. And the improvement impacts not only the individual performance, but the team performance. So when I think about it, I think about two mountains with people climbing up the hill, achieve new heights. That was my vision, is how to help people lead themselves better and lead their teams better.
Awesome. And first, I just want to say thank you for your service. I come from a military family. My husband was 8 years Navy. My oldest is in the Air Force, and he's overseas right now. So
Okay.
definitely thank you for your service.
You're welcome, and thank you for your support and your sons, and being the military family. And what I say now a lot lately is America was worth it, and I truly believe that. It was from a guy who never imagined in high school. My two brothers joined. I would never was going to join. No way. I went through college. I wasn't going to join. It was only when I had 454 rejection letters in 1982 because of the recession that I considered the military. And I said, 4 years, no more, period, dot. And at the 4 year point, I took another assignment, then another assignment, then I got a master's degree, and then I got another master's degree. I'm now sitting with 3 master's degrees and 27 years service. It's like, what happened? But it was just, they kept giving me things that just energized me and excited me. And I love the social aspect, interacting with people. I love the mission. I always thought about these deployments. As a captain, I got to deploy to Salopi, Turkey, and then to
Wow.
Sirsinc, Zaku. That was Zaku, Iraq. Sirsinc, Turkey was right on the border. We went down into Iraq quite a bit. It was already secured in that area, but we were dealing with the aftermath of the security and so many families that were displaced and bringing them back into this, into the Iraqi town and reestablishing water and electricity for the city. And oh, what a mission, right? It's so impactful.
That is amazing. And it's actually funny how timely this is. Last night, my husband and I were watching Gladiator. And of course,
Okay.
it's in the Coliseum if you've seen
Mm-hmm.
the movie. And so he was like, "Oh, I've been in the Coliseum." So we pull up all these books and like all his pictures from being overseas. And, he was in Italy and all the different countries he was in. And so we were reminiscing over that last night. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
so many memories and so many connections. And I mean, amazing friendships he has today just
Yeah.
because of, his service. So
I
yeah, it's
I
pretty
uh,
awesome.
I never thought I was going to leave Wisconsin that much. I grew up in Madison, Wisconsin, went to University of Wisconsin. I just imagined myself in Wisconsin designing wastewater treatment plants. And now I've been to 46 of the 50 states. Only have not been to Alaska, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and I think Vermont, New Hampshire, excuse me.
Yeah, to get
And
there.
I've been to 24 different countries.
Wow.
So amazing. Just
Yeah, it
That's a
is.
whole nother podcast.
It is for sure. So talk to me about, in what you've seen in your military career and your business career, right? It's so important that people are in the right roles for what it is that they do. And tell me, what is your take on that, or how do people really make sure their businesses are aligned that way?
Oh, I could not agree any more on that statement. It is so important. Now, because the key is you can operate in a role that doesn't fit your personality for a while. You can do really well. But over time, it will start to wear on you because it takes more energy to operate in a role doesn't fit your personality, right? Doesn't fit your skills. You may be able to do it, but it just takes a lot of energy. I'm a certified DISC consultant with Maxwell Leadership. So DISC, you look at the driver, the influencer, the steady, stable, and the compliant, 4 different personalities. And we have 3 graphs, and one of them looks at the mask that you're wearing. So here's my natural style, but this is the way the work wants me to operate. And when those 2 are drastically different, bing, 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 you got a problem, right? And I had one person that did the exam, and I got a note back from the company that says, you need to have a conversation with this person. And I'd already had a conversation with her, and she was not doing well. So we really had to work together to figure out how to get her in that right position. So I think as leaders, we constantly have to look at whether it's leadership in a government, leadership in a nonprofit, leadership in a company. Look at your people, talk to them, figure out what they want in life, do some analysis of their personality. I mean, the reason we do Myers-Briggs and Strength Finders and DISC is not just because it's an HR thing and we want to improve communication. Part of it is, what's your natural personality? What kind of things fit? If you're you're not a detail-oriented person, but you're in a job that's requiring a lot of detail, that's going to be a real challenge. And that's what I think we've got to constantly watch. And when you see people who are not succeeding, don't just say, time to get rid of them. Ask the question, what's happening?
Yeah.
Have
No,
a conversation with them. So
I agree, absolutely. And it's something that, ultimately it's checking in with your people. What do you need to succeed, right? And it could be, like you said, a personality mismatch as to what you're expecting and what they're comfortable with, or something like that. But how often would you say, like, so often this is a once and done thing, right? Like you put somebody into a role, you assume they can do the role. But how often do you need to be kind of reassessing that?
Oh, all the time. At least every year, if not throughout the year. So, and you got to realize people get into jobs. They take jobs to get into a company. Think about USAA here in San Antonio. It is the military officers now. It goes down all to non-commissioned officers, insurance company. It was started just over 100 years ago by a number of officers out at Fort Sam Houston to, minimize the risk to themselves, and then they've expanded right into now a huge business. But people will take almost any position to get in, kind of like the government. You take any position to get in, and then you start moving around to get to what you want. So if you think that first year employee comes in, you've got them perfectly matched, you're probably really wrong. So stop and have a question. Now, you hired them for a role, so have the conversation with them. I realize you want to go there. I've hired you for this. If you perform really well in this, I'm willing to help you get there. And then you got to mean it. You got to be authentic, right? How can I help you get to the next step? But at the same time, if you're going to just, if your performance is low and all you're thinking about is how I can make connections to get somebody somewhere else, that would be a hard one to support, because you're just going to do the next same at the next position, and it's better off the company get rid of you. I hate to say that. I was going to write a book called V8 Leadership, the 8 essential ways to lead people. And the last one was, sometimes you have nothing else for that person to grow into, so you have to let them go so they can grow. And sometimes what you have, they're not growing into.
Yeah.
And you have to let them go to flourish somewhere else. So
Yeah.
neither of those are bad. It's trying to get people go back to your first question, into the right position.
Absolutely. And I know throughout my corporate career and senior management and everything else I've done, I always was a big proponent of hard skills and soft skills, right?
Yeah.
Like soft skills are amazing because people can really grow, and use those soft skills, where hard skills, a lot of them you can learn, right? So people come into one area, if they have the right soft skills and they're a good fit for your company, you can always often, help them grow in their hard skills into another role.
It can be hard to grow the soft skill of emotional intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you either have it or you don't. There's a great story, a gentleman who was with me in Society of American Military Engineers here in San Antonio. And he says when he was a colonel, I think he was a group commander, he hired a exec officer who was really high on empathy. She wasn't that strong of an exec officer in terms of admin, but she was great on emotional, what did I just say?
Emotional intelligence.
Empathy,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
emotional intelligence. And the vice wing commander came down and said, "Not sure why you hired that person. They're not the best." He goes, "Well, I didn't hire her to be an admin. I'm really good at admin, in terms of organization, structure, discipline. I'm terrible at empathy. I need somebody who can help me." And he had given her a charge. And the guy said, the vice wing commander said, I'll watch that. Well, he came back like 6 to 9 months later and said, "Your organization thinks you are the most empathetic person that ever existed." And he pointed at the exec because she tells me when things are happening that I need to go and engage on, when I need to write a note, when I need to walk down the hallway, when I, maybe need to give somebody a break and go grab them a cup of coffee. And so
that's awesome.
yeah.
And that's critical too, that you mentioned that it's so important that we don't just hire a clone of ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. But as we're growing our team, that we hire people that complement our weaknesses, that they help us see the pieces that we don't, to make us a more complete and holistic business. And to do that, it's important that you can self-assess, right? That you're self-aware. Like, how do you know, and what would you recommend for people to be able to find those key players of their team and be able to complement themselves?
Yeah, it always starts with knowing what you want, right? There was a great quote this morning. I don't know if I can find it real quick in this. Let me see real quick. But it was basically the very first step to achieving what you want is to know what you want. Simple. I mean, it's just a simple statement, but it's so true. If you haven't defined the position and thought about the skill sets that the team has, in our Maxwell DISC assessment, we do a team analysis. So we take the individual assessments of all the people and we combine them together, and you start to see where the strengths and weaknesses of the team are. And it's not uncommon all of a sudden, especially in the engineering side, you see everybody on the reserve side and very compliant, process oriented side. So you don't have any on that influential side or even the directive side. So you're missing pieces. So how's the team going to operate? So when you can do a team assessment like that. This next time I need to try to find somebody in that quadrant to balance my team off. Otherwise, like you said, we're all going to hire the compliant analytic people if that's the market, if that's who you are, and that's the market, that's kind of the business you're in, like engineering. So you've got to kind of constantly be thinking about all of that. We in our DISC assessment, we call it it's basically strengths, power DISC. We call it the power DISC, and we look at what are your strengths in 7 areas of leadership, and thus where do you try to hire somebody who complements you in the areas you're weak in. Don't try to spend a lot of time on your weaknesses because it's not a natural personality. Find somebody else who it's their natural personality. So yeah, so important. So that's really why we do a lot of those assessments, is to not only assess who the people are, but now look at the bigger picture. What do we need to put together for this team to operate right?
Yeah. And how does all of that tie in with clarity, like as far as the vision of your business and where you want it to go?
Ooh, well, that's a good question. I always love good questions. How does it fit into clarity? One thing that I'm going to hold this book up. You and I were talking about this as we were discussing the E-Myth Revisited, Michael Gerber. When I had my knee replaced a couple of years ago, I Googled as I was doing, I was laying on the couch, couldn't walk that much. And I was doing physical therapy. And I said, what can I listen to? I got to do something. I was on so many drugs, it was hard to read. But I picked up this book and I was like, wow, this is incredible. And the piece of clarity he talks in the very end, it's kind of the second half of the book, is figuring out your primary aim. And he says, and most everybody will jump to, well, this is the aim of my business. He says, no. What's the primary aim for your life, right? And I used what we call the wheel of life. So you rate yourself on your physical part of your life, and your spiritual, and your financial, and your relationships, and your professional. There's a couple more you could use. You can add in as you want. But what things are important to you? And you rate yourself. Am I a 3, a 5, a 7, a 9? So where do I need to put my effort? And once you use something like that to figure out where I want my life to look like, right? I want to have time for my spouse, my significant other. I want to have time for my kids. I want to have time for God. Once you put that together, that starts to be your primary aim. And that becomes that vision piece, that clarity of what I want. Now, how does my business fit that? Because just take a piece that we all can relate to. If I can afford 40 hours, I say that purposely, if I can afford 40 hours because I have so many other things I want to do, plus I want to get good sleep, plus I want to work out, plus, so 40 hours is the right time, but my business is going to need me 60, 80 hours a week. You've created a natural clash and it's not going to work. So having that personal vision of what you want your life to look like, and then the personal vision of what the business will look like is so important.
Absolutely.
I'm in the process right now, just to jump on that, of creating a digital course. I'm trying to work. I'm 64, right? I'm financially where I need to be. I can just retire, but I can't. There's more I want to do. I'm a spiritual being. I want to do more, have more, be more. And I want to help people encourage transition because I see so many people frustrated. They're in the wrong role. I want to help them get to the right role. So everything we've been talking about. But I spent a lot of time saying the same things. So I'm going to create a digital course talking about the career transition process, not just military, but even non-military. As you're in that wrong role, how do I get to the right role within the company, within another company, maybe totally change, 180 degrees, whatever it is. So, because we have to think about our mindset, where we're at, what's our personality. Second one is what I want to do, which my natural fit. 3 is the network to help me, because 70% of the jobs are achieved through your network. And then how do you sell your value? Most people only focus on that last piece. How do I write a resume? How do I write a LinkedIn profile? But they struggle with that piece because they haven't wrestled, and I use that purposely again, they haven't wrestled that first piece of who am I and what do I want to really do? So that clarity is so important. That's why I picked the chapter that I did today for that book, is clarity. In fact, Michael Hyatt in The Vision Driven Leader, when John Maxwell said, I want to write this book, put your dream to the test. And here's the 10 chapters I'm thinking of. Michael Hyatt said, clarity is number 1, obviously, period. And there's a whole story about that I won't go into, but it just backs up other leaders thinking clarity is so important, because it gives you that vision. It's the inspiring vision that gives you the energy to achieve what you want to achieve.
100%. Yeah. And without that, you don't know where you're going to go.
That's right.
So I agree with you.
Yeah.
And I'm curious. So you have an extensive background in military, of course, and helping military people transition into their careers. And my husband, like I said, was in the Navy and then transitioned to his own business and having a construction business. And as I have met, his other Navy buddies through his different get-togethers and things like that as we travel, so many of them are entrepreneurs. And what is the connection that you see there, or what have you seen in your experience?
I think there's a couple different things. One, especially depending how long you're in the service, but at some point you're tired of working for somebody else. You want that freedom to be the boss. You were working your way up to be the boss, but in the military, you always have another boss. So how do I now become my own boss, get to determine my own priorities? If I want to take off, I get to take off, right? How many of us have asked the boss for a week leave during this period, and they said, I'm sorry, I can't do that, right? End of year, end of fiscal year, and the end of September, at least in the architect, engineer, construction business, it is crazy. From June on, you're putting in proposals, 15 hours a day. And then as soon as you get them all awarded on the 30th of September, and then come 1 October, you got to start putting action in and getting those things started. I think it's the McCain rule, is you've got to, the bona fide need rule, the bona fide need rule. If we just gave you this money, you got to get it started. You can't wait 6 months.
Right.
So we really worked that hard. So it's so important that we're pushing that forward and making that happen.
Absolutely.
So that was the one piece, is either we want to be our own boss, but 2, we have that spirit. We've been learning different aspects of business, and we want to put that together. I remember sitting on planes, pulling up the American Airline Advantage magazine and the plane, when they used to put the magazine there. I don't think they do always anymore. It was weight, right? got 150 magazines. It starts to add weight. So, which is surprising. We're on that margin, but we are. Um, I would read stories about being an entrepreneur, starting my own business. And I was just like, I want to do that someday. So there's that dream of, am I able to do it? And I think a lot of military have that vision, because sometimes in the military, we can be entrepreneurial. There's a lot of jobs where everything's by the book, but there's some where you really get to think and drive and help and coach and mentor. And they really enjoy that. And they want to lead their own organization.
Absolutely. And how do you help people in that journey? Like what are you doing with your business today to really help people make that transition?
Yeah, it just goes back to those 4 modules I was talking about, understanding kind of what you're bringing with. So if you're um, say an aircraft maintenance person, and it's a couple of different things come to mind, such a rigid structure. You do maintenance on an aircraft, it's got to be everything by the book. I mean, I can't, I was just amazed being a civil engineer. I was talking to a 2-star general one time when I was the group commander, and he came to the base, and I had actually worked for him in Europe, so I knew him a little bit. We had worked through the what was it, Operation Iraqi Freedom together. So from Germany, and he was the logistics head, so I was underneath him. So he came, and I said, this is kind of crazy the way we do this. I've had to go through and invest thousands of dollars in toolkits because a pliers may have a burr on it because they just used it. When I had to have an inspection set when you came in that had never been used, and I feel it's fake. We're wasting a lot of money. And his answer was, and your point is? It's like, okay. But the point being is, people come now with that mentality out into the civilian workforce, and it's different. And you have to recognize the mentality that I'm coming with, because the environment I came out of, and it doesn't have to be just the military. It could be any business that you came out of. You have now developed with culture and habits and beliefs of what that company needed for you to succeed. And how does that transition translate into another company? You have to be aware of that. So I really help people walk through that to recognize it, and then figuring out their strengths and their weaknesses and their experiences. I think that's the key, is what has happened in your life, good or bad, that drives you. Had an Army Sergeant Major. He came out of Alabama. And I said, so we had a long conversation, but I said at one point, so what got you in the Army? He goes, that was easy. There was nothing for me in Alabama but drugs, alcohol, robbery, death, or jail.
Wow.
Almost all my friends, that's what they were going through. I did not want that. My mom did not want that. So I joined the service, and I just loved it. And here he is coming up on 30 years. I said, so after we keep talking, I said, so what was your best experience? So remember what I just said. Now he says, the best experience is I was in DC, and I got to be the point person for the USA Olympic Dream Team coming to DC to talk to the inner city kids. And as I arranged that, and all these kids came from these schools, and these are probably elementary into middle school, very impressionable. Probably weren't not the high school people, but some could have been. And they walked away. He said he talked to some of the kids, and he said their eyes were just wide open. And he said a lot of these guys came from the same place I'm in, inner city poverty, but they developed a mentality and a discipline, and they succeeded. I can do that too. So now he's bringing where he was from and that experience together to a passion to do a certain thing going forward. And he said, I never even thought of that. I just thought that was 2 pieces in my life that were unrelated. So we spent some time walking through that. It's because now when he now writes, he starts researching what companies he wants to work with and network with those people. He has a whole different perspective. And when he writes his resume, he has a whole different perspective on the summary and what he's looking for and what he brings, what's his value.
I love that. And I think it's so powerful when, instead of running from our past, we can use it to empower us and to help us to transform other people's lives that may have come from a similar background, and just use that as just fuel versus an escape, right?
Yeah. It's it's that hard piece of, and I'm a spiritual person, so I'll ask it this way, but if you're not spiritual, you could still ask it a similar way, is, did God put these experiences in my life for me to learn these things, for me to leverage them in my future? Or did God develop the personality inside of me for the things that happened, that I'm going to be able to grab onto those and use those for my future? Or there's no God in the picture, right? Are things that happen to me related to leverage my skills? Is there a greater plan here? Which starts to get back in the spiritual side. So I think you look at it from several different ways, but the point is the same. Are the experiences there for a reason? And I think they are.
I agree 100%.
The guy who was best man at my wedding, about the 2.5 month point after my wife and I got married, he got in a really, really bad car accident.
Wow.
And they basically pronounced him dead. And they would have never really done anything for him, except he's laying on the ground. He had a Corvette, got broadsided, gas all into the T roof was down, gas into the driver compartment, just burned beyond belief.
Wow.
But his next door neighbor and one of his childhood friends was the EMT, and Dave on the ground heard his voice and turned around and said, "Bill." It's like, Dave, and he's alive. And so he then spent years helping other burn victims, recover through that, and spouses of burn victims go through that, and families, and just amazing stories.
Yeah, it is. And that ties back to the empathy you were talking about before, is you can understand where people are coming from if you've been there yourself and shared that experience with them.
That's right.
Yeah. So I'm curious that you've accomplished so much in your military career, your personal life, your corporate career, business. Mm-hmm. How do you define success? What does that look like for you?
I struggled with that one for a long time, because we can think about it as, a dollar figure, right? In fact, if I'm a 7-figure business owner, I got to be 30 million. I guess 7 figures is just in the millions, right? Maybe it's 30 million, because I use that because that's where a lot of small businesses exit the small business program for the government. 30, 35 million. So are you successful then? Or is it 100 million? Is it 200 million? Is it a billion? What is the number? And you can always be. Matthew McConaughey had a great statement when he did the Academy Award speech, right? And the third one is, I'm always wanting to be chasing something. I'll never get there. But when I'm at 10 million, I want 20. When I'm at 20, I want 50, right? When I'm at the person that I wanted to be 10 years ago, I still want to continue to change. So I think Earl Nightingale, who did a fantastic, if some people haven't listened to it, you got to go back. It's a 1939 audio. You can get it on YouTube. It's just called The Strangest Secret. And it goes back to Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich. They're really tied together. But Earl Nightingale says, success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal, something that's worthwhile, whatever that might be in your life, because it doesn't have to be money. Right? Maybe it's the quality of what you bring. Maybe it's a technical aspect you bring. Maybe it's just being able to balance how I impact my kids and my family while I'm still working. That's a worthy ideal, and I'm progressively getting better. Nobody's perfect. None of us, but we all have mental issues of self-worth and imposter syndrome and all these things, because we're trying to hold ourselves to this huge standard. But if we just realize that we're just progressively getting better, we will fail. Think about discipline. I use this iPhone with MyFitnessPal, and I log in my food every day, and I'm trying to stay below 2,000 calories. And I'll go out sometimes to dinner and I'll have 3,000 calories in a day. It's like, I failed, but I've gotten the mindset now of, as long as I balance that out over the week to under 2,000, I'm okay. And I've maintained my weight. In fact, I've lost a lot of weight. So that same idea goes across a lot of things. As long as I'm progressively, the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. I just love it. I could speak for a long time on it.
I love that. No, that's so powerful. And it's true. As long as we're trending the direction we want, we're going to head that direction.
That's right.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, if you had the attention of the whole world for 5 minutes, what would you tell them?
I'm thinking about your audience in particular, and that's business owners. And I would tell you, same idea we just talked about, progressive realization of a worthy ideal. Your people are your best asset. And if you don't get down and talk to them and understand them and realize why they're in the business, because I can't remember if we talked this already, but it's your business. It's your baby. You want to grow it, right? You want it to be the best. Those people, a bunch of them could have come in just to get a job. This may be a stepping stone to get this skill to go to the next thing. You don't know. And you can't ask them to have the same passion you have. So get to know your people, be resourcing them. Always be looking at your processes. I love this book, again, E-Myth Revisited, that we talked about with my knee surgery, because he walks through in the back, what's your primary aim? Now, what's your business goal? How does that fit your primary aim? And now your organization structure, how are you going to set that up to achieve the business goals? And what's the roles and responsibilities, and who has those? And who's going to have to take on temporary roles until we can hire somebody else, right? And what's your processes? And you got to constantly go back and be looking at that, just like we talked earlier, to make sure that we're progressively growing. And make sure, one thing, I was in a nonprofit, and one thing we didn't do is get right up front it didn't have a business plan, but we did, about 12 months in, we got one. But we didn't have an agreement on how we formed the company and how we dissolved the company. And that's important to have that discussion right up front. Too often, 80% of businesses fail within 5 years. Another 80% fail within the next 5 years. That's 96% fail in 10 years. And they fail because they don't go back. That's what Michael Gerber did his study on. They don't go back and put those right things in place and constantly be walking through those. So I think that's what I would tell the business community is if you don't have those things, if you just jumped into business because, man, you just love doing whatever it is, stop and work on your business, not just in your business. It will cap out. You will have people problems. You'll have other problems. You'll have client problems if you haven't figured out how we're going to do the business. That's probably the biggest thing for your audience. Since we're seven-figure entrepreneurs, seven-figure business.
Absolutely. And for people that are listening and want to get a hold of you, where can they find you online?
Yeah, the best thing is LinkedIn. I'm the only Don Gleason with the middle initial L, thanks to my business partner, who's an LinkedIn expert. He says that's one way to stand out. There was like 63 other Don Gleasons, but I'm the only one with the middle initial L. So Don L. Gleason. And just send me a note. I'm on there several times a day. I just love connecting to people, and just reference that you're here, and I'll give them a free 30-minute conversation, complimentary. Let's talk about where you're at, what you want to do. That's the best thing I can probably give somebody, is my time to help them figure out where they want to go.
I love it. Thank you, Don. This has been awesome conversation with you today. Really appreciate having you on.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's fantastic. I love these conversations, and I love the questions. I love meeting new people. I never would have thought that when I was in high school and college. I was a quiet, reserved person, but now I'm just loving the relationship piece, getting to know people.
As am I. I agree with you.
Yeah.
And if you found value in this episode, please do share it. That's how people find us. And you can find me at sevenfigurebuilder.com. And I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.